my viewers. Welcome to today's crash course on Superadobe construction. My name is William Blunt and I am the director of ESEA Limited, a Superadobe construction company in Kenya. So let's get on with it. The first thing I'm going to give you is an introduction on Superadobe. What is Superadobe? When I explain this to people, they usually turn into human question marks when I tell them a house is built with gunias. But it is very similar to stuffing sausages. You have the skin, the packet, and then instead of stuffing it with meat, you stuff it with the most abundant resource that we have in the world, which is soil. And you generally build your structures in this way. So let me give you a slight history as to the origins of Superadobe construction. It first started in the early 70s when an Iranian architect by the name of Nader Khalili issued his proposal to NASA when they were curious about ways to build structures on the moon and on Mars. And one of the problems they had, they didn't want to take heavy materials and machinery all the way to the moon or all the way to Mars because it would cost millions and millions of dollars in rocket fuel. And this is something they wanted to avoid. So Nader Khalili suggested that he uses polypropylene bags and use what's abundant on the moon and on Mars, which is their soil. So stuff the soil into the bags, tamp it together, use barbed wire in between, repeat the process again, and bit by bit you get yourself a wall. So after NASA took the idea, Nader Khalili wanted to help people in disaster zones and people who have lost their houses in floods, refugees, and basically someone who wants to build their own house without using thousands and thousands of dollars in the regular normal methods. So one of his first structures, he designed a dome, Superadobe earthbag dome, which cut the costs of cement and using stone and using wood. So you're literally saving the environment by building this way, and it's an eco-friendly process. So what are the advantages of Superadobe construction? Well, to begin with, you don't need to be a degree holder in architecture or someone who's been in university and so on. It's so simple that children, even old people, can do it. The second thing is that Superadobe buildings are literally fireproof because there's no wood in it and there's no wood to burn. Actually, when a Superadobe house is set on fire, the clay inside the bags gets harder and the house literally gets stronger. The third thing is that Superadobe buildings are flood resistant. So the reason that they're flood resistant is that there are no weak points like stones. When you're building a house with stones, every place that a stone connects and touches is a weak point. But now since you're using long polypropylene rolls, it becomes a very, very strong structure. Now the fourth thing is that pests cannot eat away at your house. And that's one big problem in the coast of Kenya. When you're building with wood and so on, you have to keep putting every year or every 6 months, applying this and that so that the termites don't come and eat away your property. And the fifth thing is that it's really fast to build. You can literally build a 4-bedroom house in as little as 3 months and with as little as 10 people who just need a week's training, and you put the house all together and voila, it is all done. The next thing is that it's got good value for money. So your investments initially will be small investment. For example, you build a house, 4-bedroom house for, let's say, $20,000, 2 million shillings. Now, once you've completed building this house, you could resell the house for as much as 10 million shillings because you can get a valuer to come to your house and look at the place and be like, yeah, this is a 10 million shilling house, and you get your money back. Another advantage is that you can use earthbags and Superadobe for your swimming pools. You can use it to build wells. You can use it to build storage facilities. You can even use it to build water tanks. So I can keep going on and on. The advantages are quite many. Another advantage that's important is that it contains thermal mass. And this means that whenever it's hot outside, because the walls are so thick, literally 50, 60 centimeters in diameter, when it's hot outside, it's cool on the inside. When it's cold outside, it's warm on the inside. And another advantage is that it's soundproof and gives off nice acoustics. And this is particularly important if you're doing, if you build a recording studio and you want to do recordings, etc., or you want to have loud music playing in your house and you don't want to disturb the neighbors. So, what's the way to plan for sustainability? So, one of the things you have to do, you have to make everything work together with itself. All right, so it's not that you're just building a house, but this is the house, you know? So one of the really key points with earthbag building is that you build with curves. It's very flexible. So you can even do some shapes and designs that you can't do with stone or would be very complicated to do with stone. And another thing that's a way to plan for it is this in the sustainability is that you don't really need to keep redoing the plaster like you'd normally do with manatas in the bush and so on and so on. And then you have to make the house work for you. So for example, if you build your roof, it doesn't matter if it's a dome or it's with mabati or your tiles, collect the rainwater. And then once you collect the rainwater, you don't have to go buy these tanks at the hardware store. Build your own underground tanks with the same earth bags, plaster it with cement and waterproof cement, etc., and it works for you. The next thing, you can use that same water to grow vegetables around your garden. All right, and you could even grow vegetables on your roof if you have a flat roof. Another thing you can decide is gray water systems. What's a gray water system? When you're washing your dishes, when you have a bath, when you're flushing the toilet, all this water goes to waste and directly into the sewage. So why not use this water and make it work for you? So a gray water system is an ingenious idea that someone came up with. You could even Google it and check it up further, where it cleans all the water. It doesn't matter if it's got soap in it or not, and it cleans all the water and makes it reusable for your garden. All right. So what's needed when you're building a Superadobe house? Like what tools are necessary? Well, for example, when you're building a normal house out of brick and mortar and so on, you need all these earth moving machines and cement mixers and vibrators and all of this nonsense. So that costs money in the long run to rent. So the basic materials are tamper. And tamper is to pound the bags, and that can be easily made. You can go online and find various images to show you how to make it. The second thing you need is a chute. A chute is like a big piece of plastic that you put the long roll in, so it's easier to manage when you're filling it with earth. The third thing you need is buckets, lots and lots and lots of buckets to fill the chute and the bags with the soil. The next thing you need is barbed wire. And what's the barbed wire for? It's to act as tensile strength and to keep the bags together so it doesn't slip away from each other while you're building. The next thing you need is plumb bob. And plumb bobs are used for when you're building straight walls to make sure you have it going straight all the way and it's not going heavy. The next thing you need is a source of water to mix with your soil to make it malleable. And you need a plaster's trowel, you need wheelbarrows, you'll need gloves, you'll need wire cutters to cut the barbed wire, and you'd need wooden forms. And wooden forms are literally in the shape of your windows and your doors that you build around. So once the earth bag dries, you take it out. And once you take it out, it's left in that particular shape. All right. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is soil mixes. What type of soil can you use for earth bag building? Well, soil mixing, it depends on how long you want this structure to last. You can go for a semi-permanent structure and literally just put soil straight onto from the site, or sand, depending where you are, straight into the bags, tamp it, and Bob's your uncle, you got yourself a standing house. But it will not be as strong in seismic areas unless you have a very wide, thick wall. All right. The second method is to use stabilized earth. And what's stabilized earth? This is to make sure that the earth doesn't shift while you're building the house. And you can only use pure soil or pure sand if you're building in a straight wall. You can't build a dome that's inclining and going up with this type of method because the soil will shift. So what is stabilized earth? Stabilized earth is where you use 60% soil from your site and you use 30% sand and mix it with 10% cement and put that in your bag. Tamp, continue the process, and the house will be much, much stronger than the previous one. You can even make it much, much, much stronger by adding more cement into your mixture. And when you do this, you can literally burn the bags off and the content will stay the way it is. And these are for people who are very nitpicky about having plastic and this and that and this and that. And you can burn the bag off and the house will still stand. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is your foundations. Your foundations are going to be much cheaper than the way you build foundations for your normal house. So for a normal house, you'd probably go 1 meter, maybe 2 meters down, depending on where you're building. But an earthbag structure, you'll literally need like 4 foot or 3 foot, about that much for your foundation, depending on the size of your house. If you're building a double-story house, you have to go a bit deeper. But if it's a bungalow or a dome, you're literally going through 4 or 5 bags, and that's your foundation. So now the foundation is filled with rubble at the bottom, so there's easy drainage. So if there's water flowing around the house and so on, it doesn't come inside your house, it goes and drains outside. The next topic is I'm going to briefly peruse through. The first one is roofing. So because of the flexibility of earthbag building, you can literally put any type of roofing that's readily available on your house. And it also depends on your budget and also depends where you are. So you can literally put wooden roof frames and put makuti if you're at the coast, which is a cheaper option. But if you're having problems with termites and so on, it would be advisable to put a metal frame roof and with tiles if you can afford it. But the easiest and most pleasing structure for roofing is to build with a dome. And when you build with a dome, you save cutting down trees. And wood right now is really, really expensive. So that would also inflate your budget quite a little bit. And another advantage is that the dome can be used as a brilliant water catchment. All right. Now, the next thing I'm going to talk about is plaster. So earthbag buildings, the polypropylene material that is used to, that's the sack. The sack is made out of polypropylene, and polypropylene gets damaged quite easily when it's exposed to ultraviolet light from the sun. And this happens way more when you're at the coast or when you're at the equator. So once you've built your wall, you have to plaster it as soon as possible. And you have a window between 1 and 2 months to plaster your walls. If you don't, the polypropylene will easily scrape off with your bare hands and it'll expose the content in the bags. So it's really bad if you haven't stabilized your soil. And stabilized your soil, but meaning that it holds together. If you just use straight sand and straight soil directly from your site, it's literally going to come out of the holes and whatever is exposed. So before you plaster, you have to put wire mesh around the walls inside and out, and this is so that the plaster has something to hold onto on the bags, because the bags are very slippery, and when you throw plaster on it, it can have a tendency of slipping off. All right. So what type of plasters can you use on earthbag buildings? The easiest and most eco-friendly type of plaster is cob, and this is a mixture of soil, sand, and straw. You can also add cow dung to give it more, to act like a binder, more like a binder, so it dries similar to cement, but it's eco-friendly. The next method is using the same type of material that you put inside your bag, which is the stabilized earth, but now with a little bit more concentration of cement, okay? Now, if you want it to be not as eco-friendly, you can literally put the same old plaster of lime and cement mixed, but people who are eco-friendly, mindful about the environment will not really go for that. But if you can afford it, it's easiest to work with, and it's less, you won't have to repair it every year or every 2 years through wear and tear. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is floors. What type of floors do you put in an earthbag house? Well, you can put earthen floors, and earthen floors is similar to the cob plaster, where you use the clay, sand, cow dung, and spread it out on the floor. But you have to make sure that you have gravel or something strong beneath it before you put that on, all right? And then once you put that on, you need to make it not crack, and to make it slightly waterproof. And to do this, you have to put some type of lacquer or some type of oil on top of it. Or you could even use resin, epoxy resin. And epoxy resin would literally give it a glossy look, and you could literally pour a glass of water on the floor and it would not seep in. But now for your kitchens and your bathrooms and your toilets, where there's lots of wear and tear and water all the time, it's advisable to put tiles or to put galana stone. And you can polish that up and make it look very nice. All right. So I hope this video has given you some insight about earthbag building, and keep it tuned for more videos on earthbag construction. Bye.